Every single one of us wants to grow, to rise higher, to live better, to become the best version of ourselves. But here's the harsh truth. You can't fly if you're carrying the wrong people on your back. Some people are weights, not wings. Some drain your energy, dull your light, and distract you from your destiny. And until you learn to let go of them, no amount of motivation, no number of goals, and no vision board will set you free. Today I'm not here to talk about adding things to your life. I'm here to talk about deleting, because sometimes subtraction is the key to elevation. So listen carefully, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you the 3 types of people you must delete from your life if you truly want to rise. The constant complainer is one of the most dangerous people you can keep in your life, not because they carry a weapon or plan your downfall, but because their energy slowly erodes your spirit, without you even realizing it. They operate in subtle ways, dripping negativity into every conversation, finding fault in every situation, and casting shadows on every ray of light you try to create. You wake up motivated, excited about your goals, ready to take on the day, but after spending a few minutes with them, your enthusiasm begins to fade. Their words weigh on your mind. Their attitude infects your outlook. They drain your energy and poison your mindset, leaving you exhausted, frustrated, and often doubting yourself. The danger lies in how normal it begins to feel. You start believing that complaining is just conversation, that negativity is realism, and that hope is naive. Without noticing, your mindset shifts from progress to problems, from gratitude to grievances, and from solutions to excuses. The constant complainer is not necessarily a bad person. Many of them don't even realize how much negativity they carry or how much damage they cause. They complain because that's how they process the world. They focus on what's wrong, not what's right. They see obstacles instead of opportunities. They think life is something that happens to them, not something they can shape or influence. But their emotional energy is contagious, and if you're not careful, you'll start absorbing it. The people you spend the most time with will shape the way you see yourself and your future. If you surround yourself with complainers, your mind will naturally learn to complain. You'll start to notice the bad before the good. You'll expect disappointment before success. You'll speak problems instead of possibilities. The human mind adapts to its environment, and if that environment is filled with constant complaints, you'll slowly start to mirror it. When you listen to someone complain, you're not just hearing words, you're taking in emotion, vibration, and perspective. Every time they dump their negativity on you, they shift your internal frequency. You might think you're just being a good friend or trying to help, but often, what you're really doing is allowing them to drain your emotional battery. You can't pour energy into your goals when someone else is constantly pulling energy out of your spirit. Every dream requires focus, belief, and consistency. A complainer will chip away at all 3. They'll tell you what can go wrong, why it won't work, or how other people tried and failed. And even if you don't believe them, their voice lingers in your subconscious, whispering doubts every time you try to take action. Complaining is a habit that thrives in company. It's a form of emotional bonding for many people. They complain together to feel connected, to feel understood, to feel like they belong. But that bond is toxic. It's built on shared dissatisfaction instead of shared purpose. It might feel comforting in the moment to vent with someone who agrees with your frustrations, but over time, that pattern keeps you stuck in the same cycle. You never grow beyond your problems, because you're too busy talking about them. You never find solutions because you're addicted to sympathy. The complainer becomes your mirror, reflecting your fears, your frustrations, and your failures. And before long, your identity becomes intertwined with negativity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who can create change and start believing you're someone who always has to endure disappointment. The truth is, life will always give you reasons to complain. There will always be problems, unfairness, and challenges. But people who rise above don't deny the problems. They just refuse to live inside them. They focus their attention on what they can control. They channel their frustration into action. They replace complaints with gratitude, criticism with creativity, and blame with responsibility. The constant complainer, however, does the opposite. They give power to everything that disempowers them. They talk more about the weather than their goals, more about people than ideas, more about obstacles than opportunities. Their conversations circle the same topics: what's wrong, who's wrong, why things never change. And if you allow that energy to become your background noise, you'll lose your own hunger for growth. Energy is like currency. You only have so much of it each day. You can spend it building your dreams, improving yourself, and uplifting others, or you can waste it listening to complaints that solve nothing. The constant complainer is like a financial drain. No matter how much positivity you save up, they'll find a way to spend it. You try to encourage them, give advice, or share perspective, but nothing changes. They don't want solutions, they want sympathy. They thrive on attention, not action. The moment you suggest a way forward, they find a reason it won't work. And that's when you realize they're not looking for a way out. They're looking for someone to sit with them, in the dark, so they don't feel alone. But if you sit there too long, you'll forget there was ever light outside. The most deceptive thing about complainers is that they often disguise themselves as realists. They'll say, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm just telling it like it is." But what they're really doing is reinforcing a limited mindset. Honesty without hope is just negativity with good branding. A true realist sees both the challenge as and the possibility. A complainer sees only the obstacle and mistakes that for wisdom. They believe cynicism is intelligence, when in truth, it's often just fear wearing a confident face. And if you start to believe that voice, your dreams begin to shrink. You become cautious where you used to be bold, skeptical where you used to be inspired, tired where you used to be passionate. That's the silent damage of the constant complainer. They don't just lower your mood, they lower your standard for what's possible. You might think you can handle it, that you can keep your positive energy intact while still being around them. But even the strongest person can't stay positive in a consistently negative environment. Your mindset is like a garden. It needs light, space, and nourishment to grow. If you keep letting weeds of complaint and pessimism take root, they'll choke out your optimism. Over time, your language changes. You start saying things like, "It's just how it is," or "Nothing ever works out," and those phrases become self-fulfilling prophecies. You manifest the mindset you've absorbed, and that's why deleting complainers from your life isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about protecting your mental and emotional ecosystem. Some complainers come disguised as friends, or even family who just care about you. They'll tell you they're only warning you, only trying to keep you realistic, only looking out for you. But you have to understand the difference between caution and corrosion. Constructive feedback helps you grow. Constant complaining rots your belief system from within. One challenges you to improve, the other convinces you it's not worth trying. The more time you spend around people who complain about everything, the more your brain learns to associate talking with venting instead of visioning. You start using your voice not to declare your purpose, but to describe your problems. And that's a tragedy, because your words create your world. You don't have to confront a complainer with anger or judgment. You don't even have to label them as toxic. But you do need to create boundaries. Protect your peace the way you protect your health. If you notice that every time you talk to someone you leave feeling worse, that's a sign. If you notice your energy dip before you even pick up their call, that's another sign. Energy doesn't lie. You don't owe everyone unlimited access to your time and attention. You can care about someone and still choose not to engage in conversations that destroy your mood. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to let their negativity shape your life. The best thing you can sometimes do for a complainer is not to feed their complaints. Without an audience, the performance ends. If you want to elevate your mindset, you have to be intentional about the voices you allow around you. Surround yourself with people who talk about progress, not problems. People who challenge you to grow, not convince you to quit. People who bring solutions, energy, and belief into the room. When you spend time with people who uplift you, your energy rises naturally. You feel lighter, more capable, more hopeful. You start to think bigger, dream clearer, and act faster. That's the power of environment. It either fuels your growth or feeds your stagnation. And the constant complainer will always choose the latter, because their comfort zone is misery disguised as conversation. When you look at your circle, ask yourself, who makes me feel drained? Who makes me doubt myself? Who makes me complain more than I create? Those are the people you need to step away from. Not with anger, but with awareness. You can wish them well without walking with them. Because as long as you let the constant complainer speak into your life, you'll never hear the voice of your higher self clearly. You can't chase purpose and entertain perpetual pity at the same time. Every complaint you listen to is a seed of doubt planted in your mind. Protect your soil. Protect your energy. Protect your peace. The dream killer is one of the most subtle yet destructive people you can ever allow in your life. They rarely show up with open hostility or obvious negativity. Instead, they come disguised as voices of reason, practicality, or even care. They tell you they're only trying to protect you from disappointment, only trying to help you see things clearly, only trying to keep you from getting hurt. But beneath those gentle words lies a dangerous seed, doubt. The dream killer plants it slowly, quietly, and repeatedly until your once bright ambition starts to fade under the shadow of uncertainty. They mock your dreams not always through direct insults, but through little smirks, small jokes, or backhanded compliments that make you question yourself. You tell them about a goal you're passionate about, and instead of encouragement, you get a sarcastic, "Good luck with that," or a skeptical, "That's not really realistic." Over time, these tiny moments add up, shaping your confidence and suffocating your belief. The dream killer doesn't have to hate you to harm you. Many of them genuinely think they're being helpful. They project their own fears onto you. Because they failed, they assume you will too. Because they settled, they can't stand to see someone reaching higher. They see your courage as a mirror reflecting their own comfort zones. And it bothers them. Your ambition exposes their complacency, and instead of using that discomfort as motivation, they use it as a reason to drag you down. The human mind doesn't like being reminded of its own limitations, so when someone near them begins to dream bigger, it creates an internal tension. The easiest way to relieve that tension is to convince the dreamer to stop dreaming. That's what dream killers do best. They transfer their fears to others until everyone around them lives small enough for their comfort. You might not even notice it at first. It could be a friend who laughs when you talk about starting a business. It could be a coworker who tells you, "Nobody really makes it doing that." It could even be a family member who says, "You should just stick to something safe." These phrases sound harmless, even caring, but underneath them lies the message: don't try, don't risk, don't believe too much. And if you hear those messages enough, they begin to sound like wisdom instead of limitation. That's how dream killers work. They disguise fear as logic and call it advice. They'll tell you to be realistic, as if reality has never changed by the hands of dreamers. Every great invention, every powerful movement, every breakthrough started as an unrealistic idea in someone's mind. But the dream killer doesn't remember that. They only remember their own failures and use them as proof that success is impossible for everyone. Dream killers often live in the past. They measure the future through the lens of what didn't work before. They'll remind you of every statistic, every story of failure, every reason you shouldn't try. They'll quote facts, share examples, and sound convincing, but what they're really doing is defending their own fear of possibility. They're not afraid you'll fail. They're afraid you'll succeed. Because if you do, your success will expose the excuses they've lived behind. When you start doing what they said couldn't be done, you don't just prove them wrong, you prove that they could have tried harder too. And that truth is uncomfortable. It's easier for them to pull you down than to lift themselves up. So they choose mockery over motivation and call it friendship. The words of a dream killer are heavy because they come from people you trust. If a stranger doubts you, it's easy to ignore. But when it's someone close, someone whose opinion you value, those words hit differently. They echo in your mind at night. They make you second guess your choices. They make you wonder if maybe they're right. Maybe it is too risky. Maybe you aren't good enough. Maybe you should play it safe. That's the poison working. That's doubt doing its job. Every great dream demands belief, and belief is fragile. It can be broken by a single moment of hesitation, a single voice of disbelief. And dream killers know exactly how to plant that hesitation, how to make you turn against your own ambition. The most dangerous dream killers are not loud. They don't shout you down. They whisper, they smile, they nod and say things like, "I just don't want you to get disappointed," or, "That's not how the real world works." They sound mature, responsible, even loving. But there's a difference between guidance and discouragement. True guidance helps you see reality, while still believing in your ability to shape it. Dream killers erase the belief part. They want you to accept life as it is, not as it could be. And if you let that mindset settle in, your dreams will start to feel foolish even to you. You'll stop sharing your goals. You'll stop talking about your ideas. You'll shrink your ambitions to fit the comfort level of those around you. That's how most dreams die, not because of failure, but because they're starved of belief. You can always recognize a dream killer by how they respond to your excitement. When you share your plans with someone and their first reaction is to list everything that could go wrong instead of what could go right, you're looking at a dream killer. They live in the land of limitation. They can't see the invisible steps between where you are and where you want to go because they've never had the courage to walk them. They don't understand that every successful person once stood where you are, uncertain, unprepared, but determined. They don't understand that progress requires risk, that growth requires discomfort, and that greatness is never born in the comfort zone. So instead of expanding their vision, they try to shrink yours. You'll also find that dream killers often appear when you start making progress. At first, they ignore your dreams because they assume you'll give up like most people do. But the moment they see you gaining traction, they become uncomfortable. They'll start to downplay your achievements, saying things like, "It's just luck," or "Anyone could do that," or "It won't last." They'll find ways to minimize your momentum so you never feel too confident. They know that belief is the engine of achievement, and if they can stall that engine with doubt, they can stop you without lifting a finger. That's their strategy. Not direct opposition, but consistent discouragement. Sometimes the dream killer isn't even another person. Sometimes it's the voice inside your own head that's been trained by years of hearing others tell you what's not possible. You've internalized those voices. You've turned their doubt into your own dialogue. Every time you hesitate, every time you procrastinate, every time you tell yourself you're not ready, that's the dream killer speaking through you. The external voice becomes internal, and that's when it's most dangerous. Because now, you don't need someone else to hold you back, you'll do it yourself. That's why it's so important to recognize dream killers early, before their words become part of your identity. Protecting your dreams requires emotional boundaries. You can't share your vision with everyone. Some people haven't earned that access. Not every listener is a believer, and not every friend is a supporter. You have to be selective with your energy and your audience. Tell your dreams only to those who water them, not those who wither them. People who inspire you, who challenge you to think bigger, who remind you of your potential when you start to doubt it. Those are the voices you need. The right environment can accelerate your growth, just as easily as the wrong one can destroy it. Every dream is a fragile seed. It needs sunlight, not shadow. Dream killers often exist in workplaces, classrooms, families, and social circles. You'll find them everywhere, disguised as practical thinkers. They'll tell you to be careful, to be realistic, to lower your expectations. But the people who change the world never start by being realistic. They start by imagining something that doesn't exist yet, and believing they can create it. Every innovation that's now considered normal was once laughed at by someone who thought it was impossible. Airplanes, electricity, the internet, every major leap forward was born from a dream that others mocked. The dream killers of history always sound the same. It can't be done. That's not how things work. You're wasting your time. But the dreamers kept going anyway, and that's why we remember their names. You can't argue with a dream killer and win, because they don't operate on logic, they operate on fear. No amount of evidence will convince someone who's committed to believing they can't. The best response is to let your results speak. Let your progress become the proof. Let your actions silence their doubts. Over time, the same people who mocked you will either respect your persistence or distance themselves, because they can no longer relate to your mindset. Both outcomes are fine. Growth naturally filters out those who refuse to grow with you. You don't have to push anyone away. Just keep moving forward, and those who were never meant to go with you will fall behind. Every dream you hold inside you is a responsibility. It's something life entrusted you with. And every time you allow someone to make you doubt that dream, you betray that responsibility. The dream killer can only succeed if you give their words power. The moment you decide that your belief matters more than their opinion, their influence ends. You owe it to yourself to protect your vision, even when nobody else sees it yet. Every great story begins in silence, in a season where others don't understand what you're building. That's where faith is tested, and that's where most people quit, right after listening to a dream killer convince them to stop trying.